Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's edition of Weekend Waypoints, Saturday edition of Weekend Waypoints, a production of SEC Extra and D1Baseball.com. I'm, as always, your host, Joe Healy, going to take you through Friday's action around the SEC, give a little peek ahead at Saturday's slate, a weather-altered couple of days here in the SEC. We had a suspension of a game yesterday, a cancellation of a game yesterday. We have some games moved up today. Mississippi State has a game, I believe, here in about half an hour. So things have shifted around a little bit, but it looks like we're going to get most games in this weekend, the last weekend before conference play begins. So let's jump right into it. As always, we start with our game of the day on Saturdays. So let me pull up that box score. It is Tennessee 4, Wright State 3. Really fun game. I got to watch really the last 5 or 6 innings of this, and that was the kind of the meat and potatoes of it all. And that was the part where Tennessee started its comeback. At one point, Tennessee down 3-1, as you see here on the line score, down 3-1, but then started chipping away. Blake Grimmer with a home run that he tattooed. Henry Ford with a big, looked like a double to me off the bat, but they called it a single and advanced to second on the throw. And then, of course, the walk-off hit for Manny Marin was the big swing there. But a couple of other notes from this game, though, like beyond the Manny Marin walk-off hit, that's obviously the biggest hit. That Henry Ford hit is interesting to me, too, because Jay Abernathy was the runner. He was on first base. Ford hits a absolute missile to right field. The Wright State right fielder actually plays it pretty well, and it bounces back to him. Of course, Jay Abernathy is flying around the bases, and he's coming around third. The throw comes into the cutoff man, and the cutoff man, who I presume was Wright State's second baseman, if he successfully plants his feet and throws to the plate, I think they've got Abernathy dead at home plate. I think they've got him, but his feet slip out from under him. He kind of throws it as he's falling down. So the throw trickles in, and even still, it was a pretty close play. Like if that ball had arrived half a second earlier, it's probably a bang play. So, we'll never know, but I do wonder if the cutoff man had been able to plant his feet and make a throw, what that play would have looked like. But as it is, Tennessee doesn't have to ask how; they just have to ask, did you win? It's not how did you win. So maybe caught a little bit of a break there, but earned it just because that was an absolute rocket of a ball that Henry Ford hit. And if he hits it, 3 or 4 feet to either side, the right fielder doesn't play it as cleanly, and the run scores anyway. So it all kind of evens out over time. Looking at the Tennessee side of it here, Tegan Coons with a good start, not a great start. He kind of gutted his way through 5 innings, 378 pitches, but the game really changed when Brandon Arvidsson came into the game, and he and Brady Frederick were really, really good over the final 4 innings. You see 2 hits, no runs with a walk and 7 strikeouts between the two of them, and it felt like that was where the momentum really started to shift, was when that bullpen started throwing up zeros, because it felt like Wright State had just kind of they kept throwing jab. They scored runs in 3 of the first 4 innings, and it just felt like they were just going to keep swinging and throwing those jabs. But the bullpen came in and totally changed the tenor of the game there, and allowed Tennessee to come back and win it. Also, Garrett Wright in here. He's been back for a couple of games now, but good to see him not only back in the lineup, but back in the lineup and being productive. A 2 for 3 game there with a double and a hit by pitch. So good and played a good center field. So good to see him back in the lineup. Tennessee, obviously, a much better team when he's a part of it. So fun game, kind of dicey there for Tennessee, and there were some anxious moments inside Lindsey Nelson last night, and some Tennessee fans that were wondering if this was just Kent State 2.0, right? But ultimately, Tennessee pulls it out. A fantastic win there, a fun game. Tennessee 4, Wright State 3. All right, let's get to some comments here. We've got some waiting. I saw my buddy Todd Harris has already got in here. Yeah, Todd says, BBN in the house, Big Blue Nation. My Cats get a rare Saturday night game under the lights tonight, thanks to storms coming through this afternoon. That got moved to the evening, and it is a pretty rare night game. They don't do a lot of night games at Kentucky Proud Park, but you'll get one there. Hopefully a good crowd turns out for that one. Tyler Bell, just a note on him, came back last night as the DH, or yesterday as the DH for Kentucky, and swung the bat well, had a double and a home run. So, so far so good. I guess there's really not a lot else just to say about that, except that it was a very successful re-debut for Tyler Bell. Good morning, Scott. I see you there. Hope you've got your coffee. I've moved on from I've done the coffee here. I'm moved on to just the water. Good to see you, Joey. He says Grimmer and Wright have given the Vol offense the boost that I hoped they would. Yeah, sure seems like it, right? They were both right in the middle of everything, and that Grimmer home run was, you know, I said it was a laser beam. It really wasn't. It did get out in kind of a hurry, but it just was the perfect. It was hitting to right field, and if you know Lindsey Nelson, you've got that cutout where that goes down and across where the bullpen is, and if that wall's any taller than it is, that ball maybe doesn't get out. But again, that ultimately they don't have to apologize for hitting home runs over a low wall. Right fielder almost got there too. Right fielder for Wright State was hustling over, and if he'd have maybe been 2 more steps ahead of where he was, maybe he makes that play, because it didn't clear the wall by a lot. And so you can make a play over that wall because it is short. So that was close on a couple of accounts. So Grimmer obviously right in the middle of it, and Garrett Wright looks like the dynamic piece that we thought he would be. Such a good athlete. I mean, the guy can play catcher or center field. I mean, that tells you exactly what kind of athlete we're dealing with there. Scott says it was frustrating until it wasn't. That's a good way to put the Vols game last night. Yeah. Ready for the Vols offense to get going. Yeah, they've just not swung the bats consistently. That's the long and the short of it. And hopefully, as Joey suggests, hopefully Blake Grimmer, Garrett Wright kind of, if nothing else, just provide a little bit of a jump start. It also helps that with more depth, with guys healthy in the lineup, you can maybe give some guys some time off that just need some time off. When you have more options, you're not forced to throw the same 9 guys out there all the time. The biggest guy, of course, that we're still waiting on is Levi Clark, and I have a great deal of confidence that he will get going at some point. But man, he's really fighting it. It has not been an easy start to the year for him. He was 0 for 4 again with 2 strikeouts yesterday. Left 3 guys on base in his at bats. Just another tough game. So I assume he'll get it going at some point, but he is down to betting 135 on the year. So yeah, just a tough start. No other way to put that. John Bro says, "Go Tigers, we're back." And boy, it sure looked like it. Yesterday, 15-4 against Sac State, and honestly, that was a 7-inning game. And honestly, it didn't feel even that close to the extent that 11 runs can feel close at all. Like, it felt like they won by 20. Part of it is because Sac State's 4 runs came long after the game had already been decided. LSU could have probably thrown a shutout if they'd really pushed for it, right? But the offense looked great. Jake Brown had a great game. Kate Arambidi had a monster home run. Speaking of monster, Stephen Milam had a home run. It was just a complete offensive performance. It's what they've been looking for so long, and we'll find out how good Sac State is or isn't, and then we can look at that with some context. But I'm pretty confident Sac State is as good or better than Dartmouth, and LSU didn't score a ton of runs last weekend against Dartmouth, so I think we can use that as a pretty good comparison. And so just a really good breakout performance for LSU. DNC 86 says, "Morning, Joe and everyone. Happy early morning ball at the Dude." Yeah, I love an early start. Just kind of a nice way to get out there, start your day out at the ballpark, and give yourself your evening to watch the rest of the games around the SEC. So selfishly, I love when have an earlier game like that. Jeremy Scott jumps in with his Roll Tide as always. The Tide picking up a 7-2 win over North Florida. We'll talk some more about that as we go along. Ben Tramer saying Burke, and I assume that's Chris Burke, been talking up Grimmer. He's been high on him for a long time, and I've heard him mention that as well. And it's just another example of this Tennessee program does a really good job of developing guys year over year. Blake Grimmer was not an instant star, but someone who they were pretty high on, and they stayed the course with it, and it looks like maybe he's breaking out as a real impact bat. So just kind of even as the coaching staff has turned over a little bit, I suspect that is still something this program is going to do extremely well. Ryan says Jake Marciano continues to be excellent. He was. We will talk about that when we talk about pitcher of the day candidates. Auburn shutting out Winthrop 10-0. That's a 7-inning win. That's about as good as you can hope for there. A shutout win in 7 innings. Nice clean win there for Auburn against a pretty good Winthrop team. Like I said yesterday, I suspect Winthrop will be competitive in the Big South. Another Big South team was really competitive yesterday. We'll get on to Florida and High Point here shortly. Morning, Amanda. I see Amanda Adams there. Good luck to Zane today. In Wilson, 901, got a feeling the Vols are going to have to Vandy their way through SEC play this year, aka have great pitching but an inconsistent offense. And then adds, happy that Frank Anderson left us a loaded rotation and bullpen. That might be a possibility. The good news is, if that is the case, as you allude to, I think you've got the dudes to do it. You would like to not have to live that way because games like yesterday are stressful. I don't have to tell you that. They can be frustrating and stressful, and so to have to live that way is a tough way to live. I think they'll be better than that. Like I would confident that the lineup will be better than what you would say they'd have to Vandy their way through. But I can also see why there's anxiety about that, and so I can't guarantee that it won't be like that. I would bet against it, but I certainly can't guarantee it. DNC says, Oak, that's Brian O'Connor, got the boys sprinting out of the box on no doubter homers, and I love it. Yeah, certainly there's been a different energy, and this is not a dig at Chris Lemonis, who I think overall he won a national title like as a head coach. I think he's a good coach. I think he'll be successful again. So this is not a knock on Chris Lemonis, but there's just like a different energy around Mississippi State, and that's a big reason why I picked him to win the national title. Like I just think there's something about that new voice in the dugout and the fact that it's Brian O'Connor's voice, and he's got like this, sometimes it's easy to mistake, he's got a quiet demeanor, and sometimes it's easy to mistake that as laid back. And I actually I would describe it as I would describe it as kind of a quiet intensity. Like there's no mistaking the intensity. And I think that spills over into the way his teams play. And so that was a big reason when I talked about there was just a vibes reason why I thought Mississippi State was going to be a national title contender. That was what I was referring to. So we're definitely seeing it with little things like that, DNC. I think that's a really good observation there. Ben asks, is Farragut still the top baseball program in Tennessee? And Joey answers, a lot of quality players coming out of Farragut High School. Yes. Yeah, I think that is still the case. I obviously don't follow high school baseball all that well, but I do know that there are still a ton of players coming out of that program because I spend a lot of time looking at college baseball rosters. So I think that is still a quality program. How about this? Sean Miller, can't listen this morning. Kansas Craft Beer Fest today. Good luck to everyone today. That sounds like a lot of fun. Sean, of course, lives in the state of Kansas. Got to meet Sean last year when I was in Kansas, as a matter of fact. Awfully nice fellow. It was good talking to him during a ball game, but sounds like a fun way to, if you're not going to be at the ballpark, the Kansas Craft Beer Fest sounds like something that would be a lot of fun. Jaron Green 6286 says, how about Arkansas's pitching staff? Was a big question going into the season. Several guys with 0 ERAs. Yeah, and now that Hunter Dietz has taken some positive step forwards, it looks even gnarlier, honestly. Like it was a gnarly pitching staff to begin with for opponents, and now that Hunter Dietz's results are starting to match his stuff, I think that's even makes me even more dangerous. So I'm with you there. Like the Arkansas pitching staff has talk about another team that's had at times some inconsistent offensive results and has had to lean on the pitching staff. Another pitching staff that I think is good enough to do that. And then Todd says I never worry about Arkansas's pitching staff. They always find arms that are good. Yeah, that's well said. In Wilson, and I think SEC opponents will agree with this, feels like Steven Milam has been in the SEC for 20 years. I would also agree with that. He started playing from day one, was on the field day one for LSU of his career, and those guys seem to feel like they've been around forever. J Titans 04 speaks for all of us when he says ready for next weekend an SEC play to start. I'm 100% with you on that. He also asked a good question here. OU, A&M, and Ole Miss, which of those three are you buying going into next weekend? Ole Miss is third on that list for me. I really like some of the things they're doing. Like I'm can't wait to see Cade Townsend against SEC competition because I just want to see what that looks like. I have a good feeling about it, but I do want to see what that looks like. But I think the way their offense is geared is going to lead to some games in which, like we saw, like we've already seen this season. There's going to be some games when the things just don't move offensively, and I think they're going to have to. They're either going to continue to lose some games like that, or they're going to have to remedy that in some way. So I put them third there. I think I like A&M and Oklahoma right now more than Ole Miss. I guess give me Oklahoma. I don't love that the offense the last couple of games has been a little bit stuck in neutral, but with the way they're pitching it, especially with that rotation of Cam Johnson and Mercurius and Rager, like that's tough. Like they may not need to score that many runs if those three pitch as well as they pitch. So to circle back, I would line it up OU, A&M, and Ole Miss. I think there are good reasons to buy each of those three. But I think that's today, and I might give you a different answer next week, but I think today that's the order I would put them in. In Wilson 901 says, still blows my mind that UVA let O'Connor leave. He was their Augie Garrido, and they let him get away. Yeah, I think though, I'm kind of with you. He seemed like the type of guy that was going to be at Virginia for his entire career, and I think there was probably a point in his career when he thought that was the case too. But I think it was less about Virginia not being competitive and wanting to keep him, and more so in that Brian O'Connor just wanted the new challenge. So I don't know if it was like they didn't make a serious offer to him or didn't want him to stay, and more so that I think Brian O'Connor was just looking for a different challenge in his career. Now that's just my interpretation. But I'm with you that it is strange that he is somewhere else, because he was a guy that I just assumed would be in that Virginia uniform forever. All right. In Wilson says A&M looks a lot better than they did last year. Grahovic being back helps that offense a ton. Yeah, that's been a huge thing. Having Gavin Grahovic back in the lineup obviously helps a ton. They've also gotten good stuff from their freshmen in the lineup. Boston Kellner had a big game yesterday. So that has been helpful. So when you can combine guys back healthy in the lineup, some of the proven guys coming back for another year, and then you get some freshmen along the way, like that is kind of like the magic mix there when you can hit on all three of those things and incoming transfers. That's usually when you're really cooking. Jaron Green 6286 says, I believe Colin Fisher, Dietz, and Gackel were all in the same recruiting class. I also believe that is true. Certainly Dietz and Gackel were. And I think Colin Fisher was as well. So that was one heck of a recruiting job in that class by DVH and Matt Hobbs and Nate Thompson and that whole group. All right, let's get to Todd, I see your question. Any teams in the SEC non-conference play you think are better than you thought they were? That answer is definitely Oklahoma. I was just kind of dubious of Cam Johnson as a Friday guy, and I didn't know what to expect from Mercurius. He was really good last year at UNLV, but it's UNLV, and he really didn't throw that many innings. It's not like he threw 100 innings at UNLV last year. So I didn't know what to expect, and then they were going to lean on a freshman in Rager in that Sunday spot, and I was like, I don't know what we're going to get here. I liked the position player group because it's older. I didn't think it was the most dynamic position player group, but I like position player groups that are old and have been through those battles, and Oklahoma checked those boxes, but I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure about that rotation, and we had them pegged to finish 14th in our preseason prognostications, and we were wrong about that. I do think they are going to kind of come back from where they are a little bit in terms of the top 25 and all that kind of stuff. But the idea that they're going to sink back into being, towards the bottom of the SEC, I think is also, and we were wrong about that, just based on the quality of what we've seen so far. And then any teams that are worse or disappointing in their play. I mentioned Ole Miss earlier, and I thought that lineup was going to have a little more, wasn't going to be quite so home run dependent. So that's been a little bit disappointing. Like, I don't know what to make of the fact that Dom Decker continues to hit home runs, and I thought he was going to be part of the solution of like, let's move the ball a little bit more. So, I don't know what really to make of that, but they feel a little more vulnerable than I thought they were, because I thought that lineup was just going to be almost like you wouldn't be able to pitch to them. Like there would just be no holes. And from a power standpoint, everybody in their lineup can take you yard. But they've also got a lot of guys who, if you're really on your game, they've got a lot of dudes who are going to pile up strikeouts. The other team I would say, and I saw them up close and personal last week, and the other team that worries me a little bit is Alabama. I just don't know. They're very good 1-2 in the rotation. Faye, Zane Adams, those two guys are going to give Alabama a chance to win every time out. But outside of LeBron in the lineup, I think they've got a lot of really nice players. But I don't know where like their secondary star is, or if there is one there, and that worries me a little bit. That as long as a team you pitch around LeBron, that you'll be able to navigate the rest of the lineup. And I wrote it last weekend about how, like, Alabama has a lot of options in the lineup. I wrote that story, and that's true. But I just am a little bit concerned about, are there any other guys in the lineup who can carry the lineup at a given time? They had that last year. A guy like Will Hodo could carry a lineup over periods of time, right? Maybe that guy emerges for Alabama, but right now I don't know that I necessarily see it, and that worries me a little bit. So Alabama is the other team I think I would mention in that space. Okay, let's talk player of the day. Let me pull up my super high-tech, super visually appealing Google Doc here of player of the day candidates. We'll go ahead and just jump it off the top. Jake Brown is the player of the day. 4 for 5, 3 home runs, 6 runs batted in. It was 3 home runs in his first 3 at-bats of the day for LSU against Sac State. He also singled in his 4th at-bat, or perhaps it was his 5th. I forget. There was a lot happening in that game. So he is the player of the day, but he got a lot of help from Derek Curiel, who was 3 for 4 with 2 doubles and a home run. I mentioned also a Milam home run, an Aaron Beatty home run. It was just a really good offensive day for LSU. They hit a lot of balls really hard. It was kind of a laser show at the box last night. Landon Stripling of Florida in a losing effort, 3 for 3 with a double and a hit by pitch. I put him up close to I wanted to make sure I talked about him close to the top of this list. The list is in no particular order except for Jake Brown, but I wanted to talk about Florida as quickly as I could here on this list. And so a weird loss, 7-2 against High Point. Now, there are a couple things about this loss that I think are excusable. Wade Walton for High Point. I mentioned it on yesterday's show. I kind of gave you the heads up of, hey, this Wade Walton fella for High Point, like, he's good enough to pitch at Florida. He is choosing to be at High Point. I thought, I think a lot of folks thought he would transfer away from High Point after last season. And then honestly, Florida might have been a contender to get him because he's from the state of Florida, right? And so he's good enough to pitch at UF. He's going to be competitive. Whether or not it's good enough, we'll find out. And it was good enough. He, in some ways, I think Liam Peterson had a great game and was the more dynamic of the two pitchers. But in a lot of ways, Wade Walton matched him pitch for pitch and result for result and gave his team a chance to win. And then when Florida, kind of lost their command, there was some free passes. Liam Peterson only gave up 1 hit in his start, but he walked a handful of guys. And then the bullpen ends up just giving up a couple of singles that find some grass in the outfield, and High Point just chipping away with good at-bats, with long at-bats, eventually paid off, and they end up winning it 7-2. Good job by the High Point bullpen to keep Florida from really being able to mount much of anything late in that game. We've seen that type of game a million times where the underdog gets a lead. It was 5-2 High Point, then it was 7-2 High Point. Like, we've seen a million times scenarios where that game ends up 8-7 Florida, right? Or 9-7 Florida, where it's just like eventually the more talented team just gets hot and ends up coming all the way back. So the fact that High Point just kind of said, nope, not a chance, and just shut it down was really, really impressive to me. So anyway, in a losing effort, Landon Stripling 3 for 3 with a double and a hit by pitch. Kuhio Aloy for Arkansas having a hot start to this season through 4 weeks, 2 for 4 with a double and a walk. It was a 7-1 win for Arkansas over Stetson. Gabe Gackle with a good outing we will talk about here shortly. Boston Kellner, freshman for A&M, 2 for 4 with a homer and 4 runs batted in. A&M, where do I have that score? Doubleheader yesterday. So that was, I believe, in game 2. I usually label that, but I guess I forgot in this case. They won games 6-3 and 10-2 over Oakland yesterday, so a doubleheader sweep for Texas A&M. Henry Allen for Georgia, 2 for 4 with a walk-off home run. It was a run rule walk-off, so it's not as dramatic as a tie game walk-off, something like that. That was a 12-2 win over Queens. That game ended in 8 innings, so an 8-inning walk-off there for Georgia. I mentioned Tyler Bell, 2 for 4 with a double and a home run in a 10-5 win over the Citadel. That game was close, and then Kentucky kind of pressed down on the accelerator. Some good relief work by Connor Madison in that game, because ultimately Jackson Jelkin just wasn't great yesterday. And, he's been so good early this season that he was eventually going to have a start that just gets away from him a little bit. That's baseball. Like, unless you're Paul Skeens, you're probably going to have starts where things just kind of get sideways on you. And Jackson Jelkin finally had one of those yesterday, but Kentucky survived it. And I think that's a feather in the cap of Kentucky, and shows the toughness of being able to deal with that. I think, last year's team, there were a lot of games where one side or the other performed really well, and the opposite, actually. One side performed poorly, and the other side just wasn't good enough to pick up the slack. This year's team, I think, on both ends, is good enough to pick up some slack. Yesterday, it was the offense picking up some slack for the pitching staff and Jelkin and specifically. And then we've seen already a bunch of games this year where the offense has been a little bit stuck in neutral for Kentucky, and the pitching staff has picked them up. So it has gone both ways for Kentucky so far this season. Scott Campbell, also a big game for the Wildcats, 2 for 3 with a double, a triple, and 2 walks, so on base 4 times. Ole Miss swept a doubleheader against Evansville, 7-2, and then 14-2. The second game ended in 7 innings. That's a 21-4 outscoring of Evansville. In game 1, Will Furness went 3 for 5. In game 2, Daniel Pasella went 2 for 3 with 2 homers and 6 runs batted in. Also in game 2, Dom Decker 1 for 2 with a home run and 3 walks, so reached base 4 times. I said it on last week's show, I believe that's 5 home runs now for Dom Decker. He had 0 last year for Murray State. That just continues to be an incredible statistical quirk for Dom Decker in that way. Logan Johnstone for Vanderbilt in Vanderbilt's 14-2 win over North Dakota State. That was a 7-inning game there. Logan Johnstone out of the leadoff spot, 2 for 3 with a homer and a walk. We talked about Garrett Wright, 2 for 3 with a double and a hit by pitch. Noah Sullivan for Mississippi State in Mississippi State's 9-4 win over Lipscomb to clinch that series, 4 for 5 with a double, a home run, 4 runs batted in. They get started here in about 2 minutes as we're live streaming this right now. That's the finale of that series. Auburn, a couple of guys in this list. Auburn, I'm searching for the score here in real time. 10-0 over Winthrop. I mentioned that already earlier, just kind of slipped my mind. 7-inning win there for Auburn. Bristol Carter, 2 for 3 with a homer and 2 walks. Bub Terrell, 3 for 3 with a double. Texas, a couple of guys here. They stay undefeated with a 14-2 win over USC Upstate. Aiden Robbins, 3 for 3 with a homer, a 2 walks, and 4 runs scored. Timo Becerra continues to be more impactful offensively than I assumed he would be. That's for sure. 3 for 4 with a homer, a walk, and 3 runs batted. And then finally, Alabama, a handful of guys with some good games in that 7-2 win over North Florida. Justin Osterhaus, 4 for 5, a double, a homer, and 3 runs scored. Brady Neal, 3 for 4 with a walk. Jason Torres, 3 for 4 with a double, but the hitter of the game, the player of the day, I should say, is Jake Brown. All right, we'll flip over to pitchers now. Pull up the very the even more aesthetically pleasing pitcher of the day list here. The pitcher of the day is Ruger Riojas for Texas. In that win over USC Upstate, 6 innings pitched, 4 hits, 1 run, no walks, 12 strikeouts. A little bit of a cumulative award because he has not been our pitcher of the day yet so far this season, I don't believe anyway. And he deserves some recognition because he's been awesome so far this season and has developed into a true Friday guy. Also a guy that is probably making himself quite a bit of money in the draft. He was always a guy that was going to get a shot at pro ball, but now with the way his stuff has improved and the way his results are coming along, probably a guy who has now moved himself into like the next tier of prospect there. So good on him. Gabe Gackle in Arkansas's win over Stetson, 6 innings pitched, 5 hits, shutout, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. Weston Moss in Game 2 of Texas A&M's doubleheader sweep over Oakland, 6 innings pitched, 3 hits, 1 run, no walk, 4 strikeouts. Hudson Calhoun in relief in Game 1, in relief of Hunter Elliott in Game 1 of the doubleheader sweep for Ole Miss. 4 really strong innings, no walks, 9 strikeouts. So 9 of his 12 outs came via strikeout. Really good stuff for Hudson Calhoun. I mentioned Cade Townsend. There he is in Game 2. 5 shutout innings on just 1 hit. Really impressive stuff. Connor Finnell struck out 11 in 6 innings for Vanderbilt in the win over North Dakota State. Liam Peterson, 1 hit allowed in 5 innings. You see the 4 walks there. That was kind of troublesome, but 11 strikeouts, and he really had the slider going. That was a really dominant outing by a lot of measures. Just wasn't, he gives up those 2 runs largely because of those 4 walks. It just wasn't quite as clean as you would like in a close game. Now that effort is going to be good enough to win a lot of games. It just didn't happen to be that way last night. Jake Marciano for Auburn in the win over Winthrop, 6 shutout innings with 6 strikeouts. Kason Evans, I thought, did a really nice job in his start. Sac State scored a couple of runs on him, but again, the game decided at that point. Kason Evans was kind of just cruising through. 5 2/3 innings, 3 hits, 2 runs, no walks, 9 strikeouts. And Tyler Fay, really strong start for Alabama. 7 innings pitched, 4 hits, 2 runs, 1 walk, and a career high 11 strikeouts for Tyler Fay. Not bad for a guy who was a walk-on at Alabama when he first arrived on campus. All right, let's clean some things up here. Let me catch up on some comments here. Make sure I haven't missed anything here. Taylor Dugas and Andy Phillips not walking through the door for Bama. That's a couple good names. Cade Snell, thank you, Amanda. Cade Snell is also a really good name to throw out as a guy that was really good lineup support last season for Justin LeBron. So, is there a guy, is there a guy in this lineup that can be that? And that's where my question is. Jake Brown is killing it. It helps that he's finally playing every day. That is true. This is the first time he's really been guaranteed that his name will be in the lineup every single day. And that helps not just from a getting into a rhythm standpoint, but also just a confidence standpoint of that you're trusted to be in there every single day. Ben Tramer says, Joe, will you please get the recruiting scoop on Will Furness? Why did he choose Ole Miss over his father's school? That is an interesting question. I don't know the actual story. I wonder if it just has to do with Mike Bianco. Bianco, obviously an LSU guy. And I wonder if there's, just the connection between Eddie Furness and Mike Bianco through that LSU pipeline led him to go play for Mike Bianco. I don't know that that's the case. That's just one theory that I think I would throw out there. All right. This is a really good point by Ian Wilson, and I totally agree. Texas feels very underrated, which is a weird thing to say about a top 5 team and an undefeated team, right? Top 5 undefeated. It's Texas, right? But I'm kind of with you in that they do feel a little bit undervalued. Now that will change as they get into SEC play and start piling up some marquee series wins, and if they continue to do that, that will change. But I'm with you that for whatever reason, it does feel like they've been a little bit undervalued so far this season. Good stuff here from Todd. Excited not see the Jelkin start. Says Jelkin just left too many fastballs over the heart of the plate yesterday. He was trying to overpower a good hitting Citadel team, and they were barreling some of his 95, 96 mile an hour fastballs. That's good stuff, Todd. Thank you for the context. But yeah, that'll get you beat. 95, 96 that's a lot of velo, but in today's college baseball, everybody sees 95, 96, and if it's over the heart of the plate, you're gonna get hit hard, and seems like that was the case. Ryan asked, if Texas sweeps, do they become number 1 in the country, assuming UCLA also sweeps Ohio State? Probably not, honestly. Just because generally we don't now, and I'm only one voice on the top 25 discussion. There are several others. Generally, if you sweep your series, we're not going to move you down. So if UCLA sweeps Ohio State now, if they drop a game to an Ohio State team that is not very good, then we're having a different conversation. So Texas deserves to be number 1, but it's UCLA just also deserves to be number 1. And thankfully that'll sort itself out as the season goes on. All right. UCLA, and Wilson says UCLA gives me 2022 Tennessee vibes just in a weaker conference. That's fair. It does feel like they're playing on a different level in a lot of ways. All right, and yeah, and Joey says the UCLA lineup just doesn't give you a break, which is I think exactly that's it. I think that's exactly right. Which was same in Tennessee 2022. All right, game of the day Saturday. We'll get you out of here. I'm interested in Florida High Point again, just because High Point's got a chance to win this series. Now they're gonna have to deal with Aiden King, which you don't love your chances anytime you're having to deal with him. But they've got their own good pitcher on the mound, a guy named Ty Brackbill, who has some real stuff. It's not he's not as accomplished as Wade Walton. He's not the prospect that Wade Walton is, the pitcher that started for High Point yesterday, but he is good. He does have real stuff. He is a guy that will probably get a crack at pro ball. So it's not nothing out there. But with Florida and Aiden King on the mound, I like their chances. But suddenly this becomes a big game for Florida. You don't want to drop a series to High Point right before SEC play, certainly. So that is what I have my eye on most in what will be another full day of SEC baseball. We got some games that moved up, some games that moved back. So it gives us another full day. Should be a whole heck of a lot of fun. All right, folks, thank you for watching. Thank you for your comments and your questions. Again, I say it a million times. I know you probably get sick of hearing it, but that is my favorite part of the show is the interaction with you all. It's your show as much as it is my show. So I appreciate you all for joining, for asking your questions, for your comments, for your conversation. Enjoy the baseball today, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow morning. Have a good one, folks.